Welcome back to the TSV Sports Show. I am your host, Jasper Lindsay. Join with me today is Armand Archignani, Steven Risotto, Alvin Chang, Marco Milani. And when I say a packed show, I mean it this time. We got the NBA playoff play-in preview. We've got NFL schedule breakdown. We're talking more baseball. But first, it's the Stanley Cup playoffs. Marco, this is the Stanley Cup date with Marco Milani.
Such a clever name. I love that. This is the Stanley Cup date. So right now the playoffs have started for the next team to lift, as it's famously called, Lord Stanley. So let's talk about what the series is going so far. So let's start with Jasper's team, the Islanders, facing the Pittsburgh Penguins. New York leads 1-0 after a 4-3 overtime win. You can thank Kyle Palmieri for that one. They play again tonight, though, on NBCSN. That will be at that game will be at, let me see the thing here. 7:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific. Excuse me, 4:30 Pacific. That's 3 hours. Next is Caps and the Washington Capitals against the Boston Bruins. They are tied 1-1. They played 2 straight games. The Caps won in overtime on Saturday, and then Boston won in overtime yesterday. They play again tomorrow night at 6:30 on NBCSN. The big storyline coming out of that is former Bruins defenseman Zdeno Chara will be playing against his former team, the Boston Bruins, in the playoffs. It was actually kind of a shock to me because early in the free agency season, I heard that news and I was just dumbfounded because I don't think Zdeno Chara is going to leave Boston. I honestly thought it was going to be like a 1-year deal, but then it happened and I was just straight up shocked. So glad to see Zdeno playing some good hockey. And now let's move on. The Canes against the Nashville Predators, the Carolina Hurricanes. Carolina won 5-2 on Monday. They lead the series 1-0. They play Wednesday, not on NBCSN, but they play on CNBC. So obviously the networks of NBC deferring all of their games to CNBC, USA, NBCSN. Just check like NHL.com. Check your local listings for all the games if you want to watch it, because they will start shifting things around as they usually do. Anyway, now moving on to the Panthers versus the Lightning. The Lightning lead 1-0 after a 5-4 win, which was an insane game. It was a back and forth game the entire time. It was just absolutely insane, but unfortunately the Lightning came out with it at the end. But yeah, it was just a crazy game. But they play tonight once again on CNBC. So again, that is CNBC that they will be playing on, and obviously NBCSN will have another game. Avs versus Blues. The Colorado Avalanche against the St. Louis Blues. Colorado beat St. Louis 4-1 on Monday. They play tomorrow on CNBC. Then the final series that is in progress, the Golden Knights versus the Minnesota Wild. Minnesota leads 1-0 after an overtime win of 1-0. They play tonight on NBCSN. And as always, check your local listings for time and channel. So the series that haven't started yet due to some COVID-19 things in the North Division side are the Toronto Maple Leafs versus the Montreal Canadiens, or as they're called, the Abs. They start Thursday on NHL Network, and the Oilers versus the Jets start tomorrow on NBCSN. So looking forward to another great playoff series. Hopefully we can see some great hockey. And that is Skating on Thin Ice, the Stanley Cup playoff cup date.
Perfect. And yeah, as I said last week, I actually have been watching some playoff hockey, Marco, not to extend Skating on Thin Ice any longer, but I'm going to give you a few takeaways I have. Tom Wilson is my favorite player in hockey. Sidney Crosby is washed.
Whoa.
And the Washington Capitals are going to win the Stanley Cup.
Wow.
That's my 3 takes.
Why do you say Crosby is washed? I still think he's still at the top of his prime.
Because it's a horrible take to have, but I don't know anything about hockey, so I can have that take.
Okay. Makes sense.
Right? Perfect. All right. Moving on to the other sport that is entering the playoffs this week. We are filming this on Tuesday, meaning that, we're filming this on Tuesday. That's all. We're filming this on Tuesday. The NBA playoff play-in tournament begins today with the Eastern Conference, with the Celtics seeded number 7 versus the number 8 seed Washington Wizards. The number 10 seeded Hornets versus the number 9 seeded Pacers. And then tomorrow in the West, we have the Lakers versus the Warriors, a game I think everyone here is looking forward to, and Memphis versus the Spurs. So starting with the Eastern Conference, Armand, who do you have between the Celtics and Wizards coming out on top tonight?
Honestly, I have the Wizards winning tonight. I think Westbrook and Beal are too big of a backcourt to lose in a big game like this. I think earlier in the season they were looking to tank, and it seems like they hit the right tone at the right time, and they got into that play-in tournament to beat I think they'll beat a struggling Boston team with no Jaylen Brown. I think it's too much for Jason Tatum to handle, and guys like Hachimura and Alex Len will step up for the Wizards.
Absolutely. And I think Rui Hachimura is one of the more underrated players in the NBA. I mean, he gives them the size that they just don't have I think their best big man I've ever seen on the Wizards is Gortat, and he wasn't all that. All right, moving over to the other game tonight, we have the Hornets versus the Pacers. Alvin, what's your prediction for this game?
I will give to the Hornets because I see the offense transition. They're pretty good. Also, LaMelo Ball, like you can't say anything. He's a future star, and then he always can make a clutch shot. So also I think during the clutch game, I think his court vision is important. He share the ball, like they have a good transition, good chemistry. I would say the game Hornets will win. Yeah.
I actually originally had the Pacers winning that game, but Karis LeVert being out tonight, I think, changes that entirely. Meaning I have the Celtics and the Hornets playing for that last playoff spot, and I have the Celtics sneaking into the playoffs on top. I mean, don't get me wrong, I think the Hornets are great, but without Gordon Hayward, I don't see LaMelo Ball being able to lead this team in a playoff manner just yet. So yeah, I mean, I think the Wizards versus Brooklyn is going to be an awesome first series. We'll see how good the big three play, but I'll get into that a little bit later. And then obviously the Celtics versus the Sixers, which I think the Sixers will make quick work of the Celtics. All right, moving on to the West, the game that everyone wants to see, Warriors, Lakers. Alvin and Armand, I'll kick it out to Armand first. What are we going to see in this game?
I think it's going to be the game it's advertised to be. I think it'll be a great game. You have the two stars, obviously, LeBron and Steph. They'll be back with another chapter in their rivalry. I think it's going to come down to how Steph plays at the Staples. Obviously, it's not one of his best outings when it goes to the Staples Center, but I think we've seen the Lakers in a little slump lately, but they played the Pelicans. Obviously, they were not without Lonzo, Zion, and BI, but I think if you look at this Lakers squad, they have enough to beat the Warriors, obviously, but it's going to come down to the Warriors winning streak if they can keep going on this winning streak and get that 7 seed.
Absolutely. And now you, Alvin?
I think the Lakers will win. When you look at the Lakers roster, not only LeBron, AD, also they have Montreal and also Schroeder. For the Warriors, I think if the Warriors want to win, Eric Pascal and Draymond Green and also Ken Bazemore. So those guys, just like I said in the last episode, like they have to help everybody grab the rebound and play the transition fast break. You don't know if Curry can on fire in this game. Definitely, I think the Lakers will play triple team or even fourth player just to guard the Curry and try to stop him. And other player like Andrew Wiggins have to be on fire. Everybody has to be ready. I think the Lakers will win. I'll give 80%. And Warriors, without Wiseman, without Kelly Oubre, it's definitely kind of difficult to beat the Lakers, especially when LeBron thinks he's like prepared, like fully prepared. So, and also LeBron is kind of very experienced in a playoff, and also he know Curry wants to shoot three. He know everything about Curry. So in this game, I think the Lakers will win.
Yeah, I actually kind of have the opposite take. I have the Warriors winning this game. And I know it kind of sounds crazy, but let me tell you why. I think Wiggins is a good enough defender now where he can limit LeBron. Not entirely, obviously, but plus the ankle sprain, I don't think we're going to see LeBron go off for 30 to 40. And then I think Draymond's going to shut down AD. I really do. I mean, I think Draymond has shown he's a versatile defender this year. I mean, he's always been a versatile defender, but now that it's just him and Steph, I think you're seeing it even more, especially with Clay, who, I mean, his defense has been underrated his whole career, if we're being honest. So I think just Draymond stepping up and being that defensive leader is going to be huge in this game. I think the place where the Warriors are going to get in trouble is when the Lakers bigs come off the bench. I think Montrezl Harrell's a guy who always gives the Warriors work. Oh man, and then Andre Drummond. Andre Drummond is another guy who the Lakers added late in the season who I think could be a challenge if Kevon Looney and oh man, who's our other center? I am completely blanking right now.
Pascal.
Yeah.
Is Pascal really our third tallest guy?
Aaron Pascal. Yeah.
Oof. All right. Well, yeah, the Warriors may not actually win this game then. But anyways, I have the Warriors moving on to play the Jazz in the Phoenix Suns in the first round. And then as for the next game, we have the Memphis Grizzlies and the San Antonio Spurs. I personally think Greg Popovich is going to pull something out of the hat and win this game. I don't know about you guys. Armand, I'll kick it out to you first.
Yeah, I think having DeRozan helps a lot. DeJounte Murray obviously going into a nice year of himself. I think that backcourt's going to be really nice. But yeah, if Memphis wants to win, we have to see what they did in the first quarter. The first quarter they played well against the Warriors. Obviously, Dylan Brooks played well in the fourth quarter. But if he keeps those fouls down, obviously Greg Popovich saw that. So if Jaren Jackson Jr. and John Moran have another good game, I think they'll win this game. But the Spurs, you never count them out, as we've seen in the past.
Alvin?
I'll pick the Spurs as well. When you have DeMar DeRozan, you have Rudy Gay, you also have Patty Mills in your roster. Hey, this is experience. They know what to do in a playoff. They know they will make the great shot. They know what they're doing. Instead, I think that Memphis, John Moran is good. John Moran is talent, but in a playoff, everything is different than regular season. Like, I think like the veteran will lead the team to get a victory. So in this game, I'll pick the Spurs.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Memphis is going to be such a good team down the line in these next 5 years, especially with Jaren Jackson's development. If Jaren Jackson can stay healthy he missed 60 games this year and pretty much all of last season. If he can stay on the court, this team's going to be nasty. And once John Morant develops a jump shot, he's going to be one of the best point guards in the NBA. It's going to be crazy to see. And I'm just really excited for that Memphis team. But as Alvin and I alluded to, I don't think they're ready just yet. Obviously, if Jaren Jackson goes off and puts up 20 and John Morant does his thing and gets to the free throw line, I think they have a great chance. But I mean, I think at this point it's the veteran leadership of Greg Popovich. And yeah, I really do believe in the Spurs, especially come playoff time. I think they're just a team that, you run into the playoffs, they make noise. All right, moving on to our Eastern Conference predictions. In the Eastern Conference Finals, I have the Bucks versus the Sixers. Armand, how about you?
Yeah, I'm looking at the Nets and the Sixers. I think that'll be an amazing series if that happens. I think we haven't seen the best of the big three just yet, and I think they'll turn up. I think it's the time where they got James Harden for the playoffs. This is what they signed these guys, Kyrie and Kevin Durant, for. They want to be the top dogs in the East. And yeah, we saw glimpses of what they did a couple of years ago with D'Lo, but I think now is the time where they're championship or bust.
Absolutely. How about you, Alvin?
You mean for the Bucks and the Nets?
No. For who's going to end up in the Eastern Conference Finals?
I'll give the Nets because offensively, definitely, Nets are really on fire. They have KD, James Harden, and Kyrie. But I don't know if Kyrie is fully prepared for the playoff. I don't know like how thirsty he is for winning another champion. As in the regular season, like you can be like, oh, today I don't want to play, then I don't want to play. So you don't know like how many energy does Kyrie has right now. But I know the Giannis Antetokounmpo is good, and also they have the whole Bucks team is really experienced in the playoff. But in the end, I would say KD will step up for the Nets because KD wants to prove himself like he got ACL and he still can play. He still can win a championship. I think he's thirsty. So for Eastern Conference, I'll pick the Nets.
I actually have the Nets losing to the Bucks. Now, I know that's kind of crazy, but the Nets' big three have only played 8 games together. I don't think they have the chemistry necessary just yet. I don't think Steve Nash is a leader. I don't think Kyrie is a leader. I don't think KD is a leader. I think James Harden is the leader of that team, and it's up to him now to show the player he truly is, I think, in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I mean, especially with him just commanding that offense and D'Antoni on the bench. I honestly think D'Antoni's kind of the real coach of that team. And I heard the point on First Take today on ESPN that this team is essentially the Houston Rockets if they traded for KD and Kyrie. So I think D'Antoni and James Harden are just showing us what a big three would have looked like in Houston had they been able to put it all together. And I love to watch them play, but I don't think they play enough defense.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, Nats have Kyrie, KD, and James Harden. Those 3 guys are like they grab the ball they want to shoot the buzzer beater. They think they're the best. So oftentimes like Jasper, like you said, I don't see a lot of chemistry between those 3, and I don't think Steve Nash is a good coach. Instead, I think D'Antoni lead his team to advance to the champion. So if Chris Milton lead his teammate, tell his teammate what to do, and also Giannis, you can't stop him. If they face each other, in the second round or in the Eastern Finals? I think in the second round, maybe.
Yeah, second round they'll meet.
Yeah. So in the second round, I think 4-3, probably the Bucks can win. But if the Nets 3 guys they want to work together, they will win. But if everybody want to be a hero, I don't think the Nets will win.
Yeah, and honestly, we talk about chemistry, but it is so important to have defensive chemistry in today's NBA. And I don't see it from the Nets. Like, offensive chemistry is great. You can just pass the guy the ball, run a few rotations, get the open 3. But I think on defense, when you're talking about switches and switching from a big guy to a small guy to a big, it's going to be important. I just don't think the Nets have that chemistry just yet. Your big 3 has only played 8 games. I think that is going to be the downfall of the Nets. And they'll probably win a championship eventually with these 3 guys, but I don't think it's going to be in this first year. All right, moving on to another team to watch in the East. I really like the New York Knicks. I think they are going to make some noise. They're definitely going to win in round 1. I think they beat the Hawks easily. But I do have them run into the Sixers there. And I think my whole thing with the Knicks is they're so gritty and so scrappy that when they do lose, it's going to be a 7 series and they're going to lose a heartbreaker. And New York is going to go back to complaining about how they never win anything. And it's going to be just classic New York. I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts, Armand?
Yeah, I think in that first round, it's going to be really interesting to see what the Knicks are about. I think they'll beat the Hawks as well. But a series that's really intriguing to me, if it happens, is the Sixers and Knicks, because it's going to be a grit and grind series. It's going to be all sweat, all blood, all on the ground. The Sixers aren't a great shooting team, especially in the playoffs when it comes around. Everything gets a little tighter. When you have Ben Simmons and Embiid, who are 2 primarily going into the paint guys, that's what the Knicks want. They're going to make you grind for every possession they want. And I think it's going to be a low-scoring series, too. It's going to be a lot of grinded-out games. I don't think there'll be any blowouts in that series either.
Absolutely. All right, moving on to the West side of things. I like the Jazz and the Suns in the finals. I think both LA teams are going to underperform this year. and we're going to see a regression in SoCal. I don't know, Armand, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the Suns team is rolling. I think the Jazz have been the one team in the West that's stayed together primarily. Obviously, Mitchell, Gobert, Bogdanovich, those guys have all been there for a while now, and this team's chemistry for the past couple of years has been amazing. They've been in the playoffs, got knocked out, but I think the Jazz, if you were to put a team in the playoffs, I mean in the finals, it'd be them. But you can't count out the Clippers. Obviously, I think the Lakers will have something to say about it. But that 2-7 matchup can be really intriguing for me. I think if the Warriors do win, that's going to be a tough series for the Suns. Chris Paul and Curry, another step in their rivalry. I think it'll be a good series too, if it happens.
Yeah, and Curry likes to mess with Chris Paul, so it'll be a great scoring series for him. All right, Alvin, who do you think out of the West is going to end up in the finals?
Wow, that's interesting. I mean, I don't know if Jazz, can win in the second round since Donovan Mitchell is injured.
Yeah.
And I know Joe Ingles is experienced, and also they have Rudy Gobert in the paint. Those guys are experienced, but it's been a long time that the Jazz, didn't stand in the first seed in the Western Conference. And going to a playoff, like I said, everything is everything is a new. So facing probably the Clippers, I think the Clippers will win. Since Kawhi, they have PG. Also, don't forget Roger Rondo. Like he traded for the Hawks, right? For the Hawks this year. I think he's a coach. I mean, on the court, like you don't know what he's going to do, and also, like overall, I just think the Clippers will win. But on the other side, Trailblazers and the Nuggets, I think the Trailblazers can possibly win because CJ McCollum, Damian Lillard, these two guys, they have been playing the playoffs, I think, in the last few years. So this time they won't miss the opportunity. They know what to do. They want to advance to the next round. For the Suns and probably the Warriors, I think the Suns will win. David Booker proved himself. CP3 wants to win the champion. Also, they have a lot of shooter outside. If the Warriors battle with the Suns, I know Curry's crazy. I know they did a lot of great job, but in the playoff, I still think the Suns will win in the first round. Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, I actually think the Mavs are going to handle the Clippers. I think they're going to get some revenge for what went down in the bubble. And I think just that Luka and Porzingis combination is going to be detrimental with Kawhi and Paul George. I think we're going to see the return of playoff P. He's going to be hitting the back iron a lot. And yeah, I think losing Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell is huge for that Clippers team because that was their second unit that could take over and still score. And I mean, I don't see the Clippers with as much firepower. And I think that might be the next franchise to kind of blow up. They remind me a lot of, it's kind of like anywhere Paul George goes, it's just mediocrity. I don't know. I hate to say it, but him and Kawhi remind me a lot of him and Russ in OKC, where it's like, it's kind of cool, but it's not necessarily a big three. You know?
But what do you think about the Trailblazers and the Nuggets?
I think the Trailblazers, I mean, Jamal Murray being out, I think is going to be detrimental to the Nuggets.
There's a big problem.
I really like CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard, and I think Norman Powell is probably one of the best trade deadline acquisitions they could have made. But you're going to need Yusuf Nurkic to play defense because at the end of the day, Portland is great, but they're another team that doesn't play a whole lot of defense, and they haven't really had a solid defending big man since LaMarcus Aldridge, if we're being honest. Nurkic can score. He's an awesome player on offense and getting offensive rebounds, but I just don't see him dominating in the paint.
But do you see Nurkic is enough to guard Jokic?
I think Jokic is going to get his either way. I mean, if Curry's not the MVP, then Jokic is, Like, all you can do is limit him. I think they're going to focus on limiting the guys around Jokic, especially Michael Porter and Aaron Gordon, because those guys are going to be the difference makers if the Nuggets do win this series. All right, moving on to your finals predictions. I have the Sixers and Utah playing in the championship, and the Sixers as our national basketball champions. Armand, how about you?
I have the Nets and the Jazz. I think it's going to be a new two teams. I think it'll be a nice matchup to see. But there's a lot of sleepers. Anything can happen in the playoffs. I think even if we saw like the Lakers or the Clippers in the finals, none of us would be surprised. Maybe the Sixers in the finals, none of us would be surprised. So there's a lot of what ifs in the playoffs, but I think I'll go with the Nets and the Jazz.
Alvin?
I will give the Knicks and the Suns.
The Knicks?
Yes.
The New York Knicks?
Yes.
Wow.
Don't be surprised if they can go to a champion series. They have the best defense in the league. If you have a great defense, you can win a game. Like in basketball, this is no doubt. So if they have a great chemistry on defensively, talk to each other, I think the Knicks can possibly win. Don't be surprised. For the Western Conference, it's hard, but when you remember the Suns make the very incredible history that season in the playoff, the 8 straight wins, they will remember this, kind of incredible memories. And I think this will help them to, be more hungry to enter to the next round or even go to a champion series. But for Western Conference, I think it's hard to guess, but I would give the Phoenix Suns for the championship game.
All right. Yeah, and I mean, it's going to be great for the Mecca if New York wins. And I mean, we're going to have playoff basketball in Madison Square Garden.
I want to see the different story.
Yeah. All right. I got you, man. All right. That wraps it up for basketball. We're switching to MLB now. Going to bring in my buddy Steve here. And Steve, ESPN loves the NL East, and they are showing no signs of changing that anytime soon. Well, what's going on here, buddy?
It's a problem, Jasper. It's a problem for so many reasons. I think ESPN has to really expand the variety of teams that they're featuring on Sunday Night Baseball. And also ESPN just got their weekday games taken away from them as part of their new deal. So they really only have Sunday Night Baseball now. So they have to.
Well, and Monday Night Baseball that no one watches, but.
No, they got rid of it.
What? Oh, man.
Yeah, it's part of the deal. So Sunday Night Baseball really needs to really expand coverage because we can't keep seeing the Phillies every night. We can't keep seeing the Braves every week. We can't keep seeing the Mets every week. And what's the matchup this week? Is it Mets Braves?
I think they have the Cardinals out there again. So it's basically like they just pick a team and then they just ride with them for the next 5 weeks. It's getting
Yeah, it's not fair. It's not a good representation because everybody wants to see the stars, right? They want to see the player. And I understand people don't want to see the Pirates on national TV. I really don't either. But I also don't want to see the same team every single weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand that the best matchup might be Phillies and Braves every night. I understand that, but you have to mix it up a little bit. ESPN always has a narrative that they play favorites, and honestly, it's really coming to an account this season. I've seen it most this season.
Okay.
I kind of want to see what Matt Vasgersian and Alex Rodriguez think about it. Those are 2 guys that call these games. I wonder if they're sick of seeing the 2 teams. I'm sure A-Rod will tell you he wants to see a little bit more Yankees. I'm sure Vasgersian would want to see a little bit more of the smaller market teams mixed in. But yeah, no, it's a problem that needs to be addressed. And I think Major League Baseball needs more of an input on who gets the primetime spot.
Yeah, and I mean, I think MLB is going to end up just changing everything to the Atlantic League instead of actually making the changes that need to happen, as we've seen. I mean, it's getting ridiculous at this point. It's so simple how to fix baseball, and it's mind-boggling that they just continue to ignore it. Well, before we get too heated about baseball, let's talk about some trade chips. We have another top 5 for you this week, and this week it is the top 5 players to be moved at the deadline. I'm going to kick it out to Steve first with his number 5.
Okay, so my number 5 is a guy that you guys may have not heard of, and a lot of people in baseball may have not heard of, but he's tearing it up right now. It's Richard Rodriguez the right-handed reliever from the Pittsburgh Pirates. Richard Rodriguez, let me tell you about him. He was signed by the Astros in 2010. That was when the Astros were really bad and just before they got really good. And, bounced around their organization for a long time, then ended up with Baltimore. That's when he made his major league debut in 2017. And then was with the Pirates, and he's been great in Pittsburgh ever since. This season, he's, served in late inning roles, and he's been fantastic. Right now, he's thrown 17 innings, and he's given up only 1 run. He's fantastic. Last year, he was great, too, had a 13.1 K per 9. This year, he's not striking out as many guys, but he's also not walking as many guys. He's got a great fastball, and a guy who, a lot of bullpen pieces on non-contending teams are going to get moved because so many good teams are having bullpen issues. So Richard Rodriguez is going to be definitely a trade chip for some team come July 31st.
Absolutely. And hopefully the Pirates can continue their rebuild by getting some of those relievers off their books. All right. I have a guy who's similar to yours in the sense that not a lot of people know him, but his name's out there what seems like the past 2 years. It's Matt Boyd, pitcher for the Detroit Tigers. And this guy has New York Yankee written all over them. I think the Yankees are going to do what they do every year and go for a huge name, swing and miss, and then settle for Matt Boyd. And he'll pitch well, but he won't be what the Yankees are looking for. But I mean, he's a great arm. I think he has a lot of potential on a winning team. And with Detroit moving in a younger direction with Casey Mize and Tariq Skubal and Matt Manning just a call up away, I think they're finally going to be the year that Matt Boyd gets moved.
Yeah, that's I could see Matt Boyd. I like what you said about that's such a Yankee move because it is, settling on James Paxton and settling on Corey Kluber. It is such a Yankee move. My number 4 is going to be Kyle Gibson from the Texas Rangers. The Rangers aren't expected to do much. They have some talent, and Gibson has the 3rd best pitching WAR in the American League this year. He's been fantastic. He's pitched 54 1/3 innings. He's got a 2.32 ERA. He's made all of his starts. Sinker ball guy that's going to attack the strike zone in the corners at the knees. Just an overall solid pitcher. And what we saw from Gibson in his early years in Minnesota was a guy who just was not striking out a lot of guys. This year, it's risen just a little bit. He's not getting hit around at all. He's not walking guys. He's not giving up home runs at all. This is a guy that's going to help a big league team. He's not an ace, but I think at best he could be a serviceable game 2 starter and definitely a pretty good game 3 starter. So Kyle Gibson is my next guy.
Absolutely. I'm going pitcher 2 here at number 4 with John Gray. It's no secret that the Rockies are in sell mode, and John Gray has been their best pitcher so far this year. I think he's a guy that when he leaves Colorado, he is going to develop even further once he gets out of that Rocky Mountain air and he gets the ball on the ground a little more. And I think he's going to be a great piece down the stretch for a playoff team, especially a team like the Phillies or even the Braves, who just might want to add some veteran pitching to their team. But yeah, John Gray is my next pick.
All right, number 3. This guy really doesn't have any future with the team he's at now, but it's Mitch Haniger of the Seattle Mariners. Mitch Haniger is 30 years old. Locally, he has ties to our area. He's a Archbishop Mitty alumni down there in San Jose. But Mitch Haniger is having a really, really nice year. He's getting on base. His OPS is 894. Who would have expected? The problem with him is he's been hurt a lot. He's had a little some freak injuries, but this year he's come all the way back. He's got 12 home runs already. It wasn't too long ago he was an all-star and an top 15 in MVP voting in the American League. I know it's hard to believe, but Mitch Haniger is blocked. I mentioned that he's blocked. He's blocked by Kyle Lewis, Taylor Trammell, and a guy that they just called up by the name of Jared Kelenic. And there's another guy coming up as well, Julio Rodriguez, who is yet to make his major league debut. So the Mariners have a ton of outfielders coming up through their system, and there's just no room for Mitch Haniger. So why not sell him to possibly get a piece that could help you in the future?
Absolutely. And he's, for me, Steve, he's the guy that the Giants, I think, should target. I think you'll see his home runs dip, but I think he's one of those guys who's just going to live gap to gap at AT&T. All right. Number 3 for me is Javi Baez. It's no secret the shortstop market is the most lucrative it's been in a while. And while there are many Cubs names floating on the market right now, I think Javi Baez is the most likely to get traded, especially with a guy like Nico Horner behind him, former Stanford alum. But yeah, Baez has got a lot of pop still, a lot of game left. He's in his prime, and I think the Cubs are looking to rebuild that farm system, and he's going to be a major piece they move.
All right, you want to talk about pop? Here's my number 2 selection. It is Kyle Gibson's current teammate, Joey Gallo. And if we're talking about most raw power on like a 20 to 80 scale, I mean, you rarely give out 80s, right? Rarely as a scout you give out any 80s. Joey Gallo has an 80 for power. I mean, this guy has more home runs than singles, which is unbelievable. Just think about this. He's got 347 hits, and 127 of them are home runs. That's unheard of. Not going to hit for average, a lifetime 209 hitter. This year he's at 220. I mean, he's already leading the league in strikeouts. But what he will give you is a swing of the bat that could change the game. Guy who could play Gold Glove caliber outfield with a rifle for an arm. He's got a Gold Glove. I believe he's got the most total runs as an outfielder last season. So he's a great outfielder. He's going to hit you homers. Trying to revamp his swing to become more of a contact guy. If he does that, he's a monster. A few years of control left, I'm pretty sure. He's a free agent in, I could get this for you guys. Free agent coming up soon. I believe he's signed through 2021. So earliest he's a free agent is 2023. So a few more years of team control. So that could be something that the Rangers could, see as good for them to get, some prospects back. I didn't describe that well, but fears of control, Joey Gallo, he might get a haul back to Texas. So he's my guy there at number 2.
All right. At number 2, I have the guy the Yankees are going to try and go for and make a lot of noise about, but it will eventually miss out on. It's Max Scherzer. Washington, great pitching staff, but as per usual, they cannot hit. So they're going to need to get some bats, some young bats too, because Kyle Schwarber, as much as we love the guy, he's not the answer for their lineup woes. So yeah, Max Scherzer is a guy who's going to get a huge haul. I think he still has at least 3 years left of really good pitching. And yeah, I think he's a guy they have to trade. Obviously, you signed Strasburg to the huge contract. He's not going anywhere. Patrick Corbin could be a guy who we see move, but I think Max Scherzer is going to command the most value in return.
For sure. I think that's somebody that I considered putting on my list as well. My number 1 guy, who I think is going to gain the most traction right now in the free agent market, probably the most talked about, one of the most top 5, probably most talked about prospects in recent times. And I say recent times, but it was 2015, Chris Bryant. Chris Bryant, the world kind of forgot about him, right? After he's had some injuries, he went through some struggles. We talked about him last week.
He's an MVP. People forget.
Yeah, he's an MVP. And just kind of went downhill with injuries. 2020 only played 34 games. 2019 had some injuries. 2018 played half the season. So this guy's just kind of forgotten about. And we talked about him a few shows ago about guys that are lighting it up that nobody's noticing. Chris Bryant is lighting it up. He's got the best OPS in the game right now at 181. OPS plus, I should say, at 181. Carrying the cover off the baseball. Getting on base, knocking in runs. I think Jasper mentioned that he has the most extra base hits, or he's on that leaderboard. Chris Bryant, and then I should mention the Cubs have a lot. Jasper mentioned Javi Baez. The Cubs have a lot of players like this: Contreras, Baez, Bryant, Hendricks. The list goes on and on and on. So I think Chris Bryant is the best out of those guys. Still 29 years old. I think a team could get him and lock him up for a long time. Like, that's how good I think Chris Bryant is.
Absolutely. Chris Bryant, he's got a Francisco Lindor kind of vibe to him when it comes to trading. He's going to go to
also, I think his jerseys have sold the best out of anybody. Like, when he was good, his jerseys were the top selling jerseys in the game.
I mean, before we were talking about Tatis as the face of baseball, it was Chris Bryant. Chris Bryant was going to be the next star. And I mean, it's sad to see this Cubs team that I thought could have competed for World Series for a long time after that 2016 run, but it's kind of over for them. And speaking of teams that it's over for, my number one is the Rockies. Trevor Story is going to get moved, ideally to the Phillies, where he can be playing alongside Bryce Harper. But yeah, this is a sad move for me to admit to. I mean, Trevor Story, he's a great player, and I loved having him in Colorado. He's a guy who I watched come up in spring training and then just absolutely lighted up the second he came to the major leagues. But he's going to go to the Phillies, or he's going to go somewhere, and I wish him all the best, because he's probably going to put some home runs up there and make the Rockies lose. And yeah, it's just sad. That's why I'm not talking so great right now. But yeah. Not Breidick. Don't bring in Breidick into this. I can't do it. All right. Enough depression. That was our top 5 list.
I have a question about your top 5 lists.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Jasper, you mentioned Javi Baez. I mentioned last week that, as an honorable mention, that Elvis Andrus is not performing well as a shortstop for the A's. Do you see the A's as a capable trade partner for Javi Baez if they were to make a playoff run?
Man, I want to see the A's make a move, but they won't. Just because I don't think they have the capital to get another guy. I mean, most of their prospect capital is in starting pitching, something they desperately need. So I think they really want to develop the guys like AJ Puck, Cole Irvin, Jesus Luzardo into starters. I think they're going to give Elvis Andrus some time to turn it around. I think if he's still struggling and batting in the low hundreds by the All-Star break, they are going to have to make a move, because they're going to have no choice. But the A's, they like to fill holes with Band-Aids. They like to get guys on 1-year deals. They like to skim off the top. So we'll see. I mean, ideally, the A's make a move for a guy like Trevor Story, especially if Matt Chapman continues to scuffle to play a little bit. They're going to need another bat in that lineup alongside Lorano and Matt Olson. But yeah, I mean, I'd love to see it. I think Trevor Story is probably going to the Phillies, if we're being honest. That's a team that really needs a shortstop. They kind of have guys who they kind of plug in with Didi Gregorius, who I think is still a star. I don't think Philly's the right place for him to succeed. But I mean, Gene Segura is getting old. They have him at second every now and then. And Scott Kingery just hasn't really solidified himself as an MLB shortstop just yet. So I think Trevor Story's head to Philly. But
all right. And Steve, do you see your Giants making any moves? And if so, what other top trade needs for a potential playoff run?
Yes, I see them adding in the bullpen. I see them adding in, a right-hander reliever like a Rodriguez possibly. I don't see them, however, giving up any top-tier prospects. And if we're going to go really, really bold, maybe an outfielder. Maybe a guy with some pop in the outfield who could give you some more options than Alex Dickerson and Darren Ruff. But that would be bold. And to get a controllable outfielder these days, you're going to have to give something up. Maybe if they want a guy who's a rental, maybe you wouldn't have to give up as much, because rentals don't go for, or you don't get anything really back for rentals nowadays. So I don't know. It's a decision they would have to make. Clearly, they got Mike Tauchman. I don't know if he's the answer, but if they're still in this thing by July 31st, I think, yeah, they do have some weaknesses they'd have to address.
All right.
Absolutely. All right. Moving on to the NFL. The schedule was released last week. We were going to break it down, but I messed up with the Zoom. So this week we're getting back to it. And Marco, I'm going to let you go first with your Packers. Where do you think they will finish, and what record?
I can't even give you a plausible record, because a lot of it is going to depend on who is starting at quarterback for the Green Bay Packers come September. So if Rodgers is under center, we can probably win a lot of our games, because Rodgers has an incredible arm. He's a lot of current starting quarterbacks combined into one, because he can scramble, he can run, and he has a cannon for an arm. So he can win the games purely off his arm. He can also win his games with his receivers. But if it is Jordan Love, there is still a good amount we can win. Like, for example, the game against the apologies, that was something out my window.
Sounded like an owl.
That was a car. Anyway, the October 24th game against the Washington football team, we can possibly win with Jordan Love. Same with the Cardinals, same with maybe the Browns, depending on how good that they are and how much they can turn it around. But there are still a lot of games that are up in the air. If it's Blake Bortles, I'm not exactly sure.
The boat.
Because what do you want to say?
The boat.
Oh, okay. So I'm not sure how Bortles will do. I mean, his execution is there, but it is going to be an obvious downgrade over Aaron Rodgers. He is going to still have some good receivers around him. He's still going to have Devontae Adams. He's still going to have that Malik Taylor. He's still going to have 3 great tight ends and Tunyon, Sternberger, and Lewis. But it's going to all depend on, if his execution is there. And if it's Ben Kurt, our newest signing, we'll see how he does in training camp. He is a straight baller in the preseason, if you have watched the preseason. But I don't know if he's ever had an NFL start. So I don't know if he's exactly going to – I don't know how he's going to do. So just going to depend on really who's under center come September.
Absolutely. And I mean, I'm going to be honest. I think it's now 80% chance that Aaron Rodgers is your quarterback. And I think he is going to play even more mad than he did last year. And it's going to be incredible. And he's going to put up 50 touchdowns and he's going to set the league on fire. And then the Packers will do what they always do and not give him a contract and make him unhappy. So it's going to be awesome to watch. And I think, honestly, the Packers are going to win a Super Bowl next year, if we're being completely honest. So, I mean, for as much turmoil as this franchise is potentially facing right now, I don't think it's boiled over yet. But I do think Aaron Rodgers is going to play mad, and I'm so excited to watch it happen. Armand. Go ahead, Marco. My bad, man.
I am too, but remember what I said a couple of weeks ago. It's like 98% optimism and 2% pessimism. Or just sorry, that's reversed. 98% pessimism and 2% optimism, because at this point, I mean, Gutekunst has burned the bridge, and it's not going to be rebuilt anytime soon. So unless something really drastic happens over the next couple months, it's going to stay the same. He's going to still have his feelings. He's still going to want to host Jeopardy. He's going to have the same feelings.
Yeah, well, I mean, hey, Michael Jordan and Jerry Krause hated each other, and Aaron Rodgers compared Gutekunst to Jerry Krause. But guess what? Michael Jordan still played for Jerry Krause all those years. So as bad as it could be, I think Rodgers stays, and I think the Packers go off next year. Armand, turn it over to your Niners. What do you think the outlook is now that you've seen their schedule?
Yeah, I think we have a fair amount of games that we'll win. I think we have one of the lesser hard schedules. I think the division games are always tough, so that's 6 games you always mark on your calendar. I think we'll go 13-4, 12-5. I think that's a fair assessment for just looking at the face value of the schedule. Obviously, you don't take into account injuries and what's going to happen throughout the season with travel, where they play. So I think 13-4, 12-5 is a good assessment. I think they have a fair schedule to start of the season with the Lions and Eagles and Packers and Seahawks. That'll be a nice 4-game stretch for us. I think the hardest part is probably the Cardinals, Colts, Bears. I think those will be 3 tough games. Obviously, you start off with the divisional game, then you go on Sunday night and play Indianapolis, and then you fly out to Chicago for a Halloween game. I think that'll be our tough 3-game stretch, but overall, I'm happy with the schedule. Depending on who the quarterback is, I think it'll be Fields by that time. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. If it's Dalton, I think our chances will be better.
Yeah.
I have a question. How many games do you think you? Okay, well, let me just ask you this: how many weeks would you give Jimmy Garoppolo before he eventually? I think it might be inevitable that he could get injured. So how long would you think you can give him before we see hit the backup come in?
Once he gets injured, I think it'll be done, but I can't give a prediction on when he'll get injured. I think it's up to bad performances.
I don't think it's going to be Trey Lance. If Jimmy G gets hurt, I think Trey Lance is a burner. I think Trey Lance will not start. He's going to be like Jordan Love. He will not make an appearance next year, even if Jimmy G gets hurt.
That is an underrated training camp battle, that Nate Sudfeld versus Josh Rosen and Josh Johnson, to kind of see who gets that backup role.
That's I don't know. I would rather have Nick Mullins than any of those three names just listed. Anyways, Armand, continue with your evaluation of the Niners season.
Yeah, so I think if we stay healthy, obviously the expectation is Super Bowl or bust, in my opinion. And I think regarding to everyone staying healthy, they could be the favorites in the NFC West for sure, maybe in the NFC. Obviously, you have the Bucks that just came off a Super Bowl. I think those are the top two teams in the NFC. So, yeah, I think at the end of the season, we have a couple easy games like the Jaguars. I think the Bengals. Titans will be a really nice game to watch. I think that'll be an awesome game. But then you end the season with the Texans, Rams. You can win those games easily and maybe rest a couple guys going into the playoffs.
Absolutely. And I think those late game, and honestly, that's what I think where I think the 17-game schedule may come in to benefit teams is when it comes to rest, especially now that you have those 2 extra games that may not even matter and you can just throw guys in. And I mean, the Texans, I think they're going to go 0-17. They are that bad. They are such a mess. But anyways, I'm going to break down my Raiders schedule real quick. So we obviously open up with Baltimore, and that game is going to stink. We are going to get absolutely murdered by Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. But then I think we bounce back and we go on a few runs. I think we do not collapse at the end of the season this time around. So I have the Raiders going 11-6. Boys, am I crazy here?
I don't think so. That Ravens thing though is definitely that's definitely plausible. I had a kid also show on. I hosted that. Anyway, I was saying that nobody's going to be able to figure out the Ravens offense for quite a while because I compared it to what the Niners were in 2019. And it's that you don't know where they're going to go next. You don't know what they're going to run next. Jackson could scramble for 15 yards, or he can gun it down the field to what's his name? Can't remember Marquise Brown. Marquise Brown. He could gun it down the field to Marquise Brown, or he can hand it off to J.K. Dobbins, and he could explode for a 30-yard run. So it's really, their offense is really unpredictable. It's gonna really take them a while to figure them out. And honestly, as much as the Raiders lost on defense, they're gonna struggle. They're gonna struggle mightily. And as good as Baltimore's defense has been the past couple of years.
Defense? Let's be real. We didn't have a defense to begin with, so we couldn't really have lost anything.
You have Max Crosby. I mean, that's something.
We didn't lose him though. He's still there.
Yeah, but
you said we lost. Who did we lose?
Arden Key. Very.
I don't care about Arden Key.
Well, anyway. And then the offense too, and as good as the Baltimore defense is as well, Derek Carr is going to struggle. And again, I talk about losing pieces. They traded away about 3/5 or got rid of 3/5 of their O-line over the offseason. A very questionable move, by the way. And now they're going to be left with someone, and now you're going to have Matthew Judon and the Penn State guy that they just got in the draft, just rushing up and bringing Derek Carr to the turf.
I'm pretty sure Judon is on the Patriots now.
Oh, you are correct. Oops. But the guy, Jason Owe, that's who they got at Penn State. You're going to have him rushing up the middle and going for like 5, maybe 3 sacks to Derek Carr, and they're not going to do anything about it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's valid points. I don't know. I think with the Raiders, everyone's making a bigger deal out of this O-line thing than it really is. I mean, we had the best O-line in the league. Even when and it was hurt for most of the season. Like losing Trent Brown, that's not an issue for me. We had Denzel Good there for most of the year. Derek Carr did fine. I mean, I think it's the fact that when Derek Carr does get sacked, he fumbles the ball is the biggest problem. So if he can get sacked and hold on to the football, I think he'll be fine because he proved last year that like, hey, you can put us back like 10 yards, 5 yards because we get penalties either way. We're probably the most penalized team in the league, but that's an argument for a different time. And then he'll just gun it 40 yards down the field to Henry Ruggs or Brian Edwards or whoever's there. So, I mean, I honestly don't think the Raiders' O-line is going to be a struggle. I think the defense is the big story. And I hate to say it, I believe in Alex Leatherwood. You can put me in, what's the word? I've lost the metaphor already, but call me crazy. I like Alex Leatherwood. I think he's a great pick. And I think Trayvon Moehrig is going to revitalize the secondary a little bit. He's going to play a great center field. But I mean, I think Derek Carr is tired of losing. I think John Gruden is tired of losing. And if they want to turn this thing around, they got to do it fast. I don't know, Armand, what are your thoughts? Am I being crazy here?
No, I think this is a fair assessment. I think the problem with the Raiders is they always come off to a great start, which is always good, and then towards the end of the season they start falling apart. And I think if they're stable and consistent, they can get that wild card spot. So I think it's all about staying together, Gruden and Carr being on the same page. So if they don't make it, is it make or break for John Gruden and Derek Carr? We'll see what happens, but yeah, I think the defense is always the question. I think Waller's top 3 tight end in this league. I think you have a solid running back in Josh Jacobs, and yeah, we'll see if that defense plays good, they could be a good wild card squad.
Yeah, I mean,
Don't forget that.
Get rid of John Gruden though. I mean, we signed him for 10 years, 100. Like, I don't see us getting rid of John Gruden either other way.
Yeah.
Sorry, Marco, I cut you off there, bud. What's up?
It's okay. Don't forget they also signed Kenyon Drake, who is a brilliant dual threat option. He can go in the run and in the pass. So you do have Josh Jacobs, who can be that starting back, but you can also bring Kenyon Drake in to kind of line up in the slot or line up in the back and catch a pass. And he's quick too. He's dangerous.
Yeah, I have no idea what we're gonna do with Kenyon Drake. They're talking about lining him up. Maybe we'll line up at a tight end or put him on the offensive line. Who knows? But yeah, that's the Raiders. But I mean, moving on from our team's schedule, some of the games of the year I'm looking forward to. Jacksonville versus the Bengals, Burrow versus Lawrence, the rematch. That is going to be awesome. I mean, we're basically watching the next Peyton Manning Tom Brady matchup, I think, there. Hopefully Joe Burrow's offensive line holds up this year because I cannot see my man go down again. Bucks Patriots, that is going to be a huge game as Brady returns to Foxborough to face his old buddy Bill. I have any game the Raiders and Chiefs play because I think those are some of the funnest games in football when they play. And the Raiders are good for at least one win versus the Chiefs this year. I think besides the Bucks, we play the Chiefs the best in any out of all the teams. And my favorite game to watch for is going to be Niners Packers. It is going to be a potential preview of the NFC Championship. And it's going to be a fun game. I don't know. Any games you guys are looking forward to?
Yeah, I like there's even starting off the season, we have Cowboys and Bucks. I think that's a great game to watch. I think the NFL schedule did a great job nationally televising most of these games. Obviously, at the end, we'll start getting some fixes in what happens in national television. But obviously, we have the Bills Chiefs. I think that's an awesome game to watch. I think the Browns Ravens games are going to be amazing. I think most likely the Chiefs and Ravens game will also be another chapter in that story. And the Titans and Niners, I think that's going to be a good gutted out game, and we'll see who wins that.
Absolutely. Marco, anything for you?
I'm loving all the primetime games that are gonna be scheduled. Like a lot of the Niners primetime games, those are just going to be electric. A lot of there's just going to be a lot. The way the NFL did the scheduling for the primetime games is going to be awesome. I think they're probably going to they're probably going to have their best primetime viewership ever this season because of the way they scheduled that. And sorry to some people who have to deal with Niners at 10 a.m. on Sunday for some games, but at least you'll have a lot of chances to watch them and on that primetime schedule. So yeah, these primetime games are just going to be incredible.
Absolutely. All right. That wraps up our breakdown of the schedule. Marco, do you have a mock of the week for us?
Yes, I do. So I had a mock of the week last week, but unfortunately, due to some time difficulties, I was not able to do it. And this is a trade for some linebacker help for the Green Bay Packers. I've always expressed that they've had a linebacking problem since they lost Blake Martinez, and Ty Summers just isn't cutting it. So there is some news that came out last week, and I believe the news is still out, that Jordan Hicks of the Arizona Cardinals has been granted permission to request a trade. And that is where Jordan Hicks goes. He goes to Green Bay, and Green Bay gets Jordan Hicks, and Arizona gets a 2022 second rounder, but they also get Ty Summers out of that deal. Now, yes, we did draft a linebacker in the 6th round, Isaiah McDuffie out of Boston College, but he was actually criticized for being 6'1" and not being good as an interior linebacker. He sees 6'1", so he can probably benefit more outside. Jordan Hicks is a linebacker who can play that inside, and he can play outside as well. So I think that veteran presence at the linebacking position would be very beneficial. And especially now you can put Hicks there, then you can put Chris Barnes, our undrafted free agent out of UCLA, in the interior as well. Then you can bring Isaiah McDuffie outside, and you can bring another linebacker outside as well.
Absolutely. I mean, hey, I picked the Packers to be a Super Bowl contender next year. And if they want to do that, they got to clean up the defense a little bit. I think that's their only big weakness, though. I mean, Jair Alexander is awesome. I think Eric Stokes will fit in nicely alongside him. And yeah, I mean, hey, go Pack, go, man. If they can get it done, I want to see Aaron win one more. Yeah, I mean, I wish that team the best, man.
I do too, but like I said, it's that 98% pessimism just jolts in immediately.
Yeah, and I know Armand doesn't want to see the Packers do well, so he may have something to say about this trade.
Yeah, the window's closing for them. I think there's a small margin. I think it happens in the next 2 years, and they'll be back to rebuilding.
I mean, I hate to say it, Armand, but their window hasn't really closed since the 1990s. So, I mean, I think this is a franchise that always finds a way to stay relevant.
No, yeah, stay with Rodgers. I mean, the window's closing.
No, absolutely. All right, moving on to 60-second rants. We're going to start with Steve today. Steve, you got anything good for us? Your time starts now.
Yes.
Time out, and your time starts now.
Oh, really? Why are you delaying me here? No. Okay, so the news came out today.
Your time is still going, Steve.
Okay, let me talk. The news came out today that Derek Jeter will have a documentary on him put on by ESPN by the creators of The Last Dance. Okay? And apparently, according to the New York Post, okay, this documentary is supposed to, quote unquote, pull back the curtain on Derek Jeter's career. I don't know what this means, but you know, if it's anything like the Jordan documentary with The Last Dance, first of all, I should preface it by saying Derek Jeter's not Michael Jordan, but this is going to be a 6-part series coming in 2022. Jeter's one of my favorite players. There he is right there. But I can't wait for this documentary. It's called The Captain, coming soon. It's going to be great to hear some stories from number 2.
Yeah, man. And R2 Spect. That's still a great hashtag. Probably one of the funniest out there. I don't know what I'm saying. All right, Armand, you're up, bud.
Yeah, so quick preview for the Boston Celtics. They need, if this is make or break for Brad Stevens, in my opinion. I think if you lose today to the Washington Wizards, you're in deep trouble, especially with those Boston fans. They're going to be ruthless towards you, and it's not going to be a fun off season for Danny Ainge. I think this is possibly one of the biggest storylines going into the playoffs. Can we get a Westbrook Durant matchup in the first round? I would love to see every second of that. But honestly, I think, yeah, the Celtics, this team is in a mess, and losing Jaylen Brown wasn't too good either. You need Kemba Walker to step up. I mean, you guys had a chance of getting Anthony Davis a couple years ago. You guys passed up on that. And I think, at this point, Tatum and Kemba aren't going to be the ones to bring you to the championship, especially this year. So, Brad Stevens, show us what's up.
Yeah, I actually got a notification midway through saying Brad Stevens is not on the hot seat. So we'll see if that changes after tonight. We'll see. All right, Marco, kicking it out to you.
Get wrecked.
So I actually want to talk about a more obscure sport that you need to start watching. It's called, you've probably heard of it, Australian Rules Football. It combines elements of sports that I love into one sport: rugby, soccer, and of course, hockey. It's such an exciting sport to watch. And the best part is it's available here in the US in a few ways. You can either watch it on FS2, but warning for that one, you might have to stay up until like 2 a.m. if you do decide to root for a team to watch your team. Or there are some occasions where there are games at like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, but FS2 likes to prioritize their own schedules over simulcasting the Fox Sports Australia stuff. But anyway, or you can watch AFL subscription service, which costs $33 a month. It's a bit expensive, but you can also listen to the radio feed for free through AFL's website or the app. I listen to ABC radio there. And then one last thing, if Pat McAfee liked it, you might like it too. So you should check it out.
Hey, that might be the most informative 60-second rant we've ever had. And in a way, one of the best. I mean, hey, we're out here. All right. I'm talking about a subject that Armand's going to hate, and I hate to do it, but the more I've thought about it, the more I don't like it. I don't like the Trey Lance pick. I really don't. I think he's the wrong pick. I think you've now sacrificed a future for the guy who is just underdeveloped. He played 10 FCS games. I mean, who's the best FCS quarterback we've seen? Carson Wentz. And how'd he do last year? Not great. Obviously, I mean, Carson Wentz was an MVP a couple of years ago, but I haven't seen enough from Trey Lance. I didn't see enough from him in college. I think he's a really talented player. I think he's just too raw. I think, if anything, I would have moved down, grabbed capital, but I think sacrificing all that future for the number 3 pick, not to draft Justin Fields, who I think is going to be a star in Chicago. I think he's going to be the first quarterback they don't mess up for years. Marco, you're just saying that because you don't want to see it happen, but it's going to happen, and they're going to beat the Packers and Jordan Love. But, yeah, the Trey Lance pick perplexes me. I think he's a great, talented guy. I don't like the trade looking back now.
Oh, you went over.
I just don't like it because
I talked a lot aloud there, so I'm going to let you both give a chance to respond to me. Marco, you first.
I just think the Bears have always had a streak of ruining quarterbacks. We saw it with Mitch Trubisky. We saw it with
Justin Fields ain't Mitch Trubisky, brother.
I think they ruined Jake Cutler, and yeah. They have not had a good history with QBs. I think Justin Fields is going to be honestly another number. I think the Bears are going to ruin him, and he's going to end up being traded in the next 5 years. I'm sorry, but it's just not going to happen.
The next best quarterback is Anthony Gordon.
Yeah,
indeed.
Great article on Anthony Gordon coming at some point in the future.
But in terms of the Trey Lance pick, you have to understand what upside he is going to bring once he is eventually ready. Not only does he have that
same case for Mac Jones.
He has a cannon for an arm. He's a very smart decision maker.
Played well in the FCS.
And right. And in terms of the Carson Wentz thing, I think the Eagles ruined Carson Wentz too. I think he's going to do a lot better than he did with the Colts than he did with the Eagles. I think he's that good of a QB that the change of scenery will benefit him more than break him. So those two arguments squashed. Going back to Lance,
my arguments are squashed.
Lack of a better term, apologies.
Oh, Marco, you're crazy, man.
Anyway, going back to this pick, there's a lot of upside, and as good as receivers as San Francisco has, he's gonna
have good receivers. Why do we keep going back to this?
I think
unproven. Deebo Samuel, unproven. I can't name a third. I can't name a third receiver on that roster.
Well, okay. I'll just stop. But I just disagree with you on that pick. I think there's a lot of upside.
There is a lot of upside with Trey Lance. I don't think it's 2 future first round picks of upside. All right, Armand, tell me why I'm wrong.
I don't think you're wrong. I think, yeah, of course. I mean, there is questions with Trey Lance, obviously not playing a lot and obviously playing in a lesser competition league. So I think, yeah, those questions are there and he has to answer them. So, yeah, it's all about, is Shanahan confident? Obviously, he went to the pro day, said, yep, we're trading a couple first rounders. So, yeah, this is make or break, I think, for Shanahan as well. If he gets this pick wrong in the next couple of years, yeah, there is questions to answer, I think. So I think what you're saying is valid, and we got to see the development of Ayuk and Samuel, obviously with Kittle, but yeah, we'll see what happens in the next couple of years.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was a fun way to end this week's sports show. This is our second to last of the semester. Wow, we may get 2 in next week depending on final schedule. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. It's been an honor hosting. I'll probably shed a few tears next week. But this has been the TSV Sports Show, and we will see you next week.